All right. Hello, everybody. What's going on? What's going on? What's happening on this beautiful afternoon on a Tuesday? Tuesday, February the 22nd, right? Of 2022. So today I want to kick off on the Black history. Okay. So I want to talk about Willis Nathaniel Huggins. All right. Willis Nathaniel Huggins was a social activist and he was a historian. He worked alongside with John G. Jackson. Okay, so yesterday I did the topic about John G. Jackson. Now today I want to focus on Willis Nathaniel Huggins. So the only book that I came across that he written so far was the Introduction to African Civilization. Okay, so I'm gonna post up the picture of him. All right, that's a picture of him. That's a photo of him. And let's see, I have another photo I want to show. And so this right here is the photo of the book. Okay. So Willis N. Huggins and John G. Jackson, Introduction to African Civilization. All right. So I believe it's still around. You could probably find it on Amazon. All right. So just look on Amazon website. I think it's still around. So let's go into the biography. Okay. So the information I have comes from thefreelibrary.org. Okay. And the title it comes from the website thefreelibrary.com. So that's where I found this information from thefreelibrary.com. So I'm going to go ahead and read this information up. All right. So it says Willis Nathaniel Huggins, historian, activist, and community mentor. The author was Ralph L. Crowder. Is a biography. It was dated on July the 1st of 2006. And the publication was Afro-Americans in New York Life and History. All right. So the ISSN number is 0364-2437. Okay, that's the information. So it says, let's go down to his early years. So Willis Nathaniel Huggins was born on February 7, 1886 in Selma, Alabama. His father, Reverend A.Z. Huggins, was a respected Baptist minister. As a youth, Huggins received his first education at Selma Training School. The Huggins family then joined the wave of Black migrants to the north and moved to Washington, D.C. Huggins, an excellent student, attended Armstrong High School for colored youth. During his senior year, he won a scholarship to Columbia University. His outstanding academic record and probably one of the Black faculty members who graduated from Columbia facilitated this connection. The M Street School, later renamed Dunbar High School, and Armstrong's Sisters Institution, had a great track record of placing its top students in Ivy League and other proponent private white schools. Under the leadership of Anna J. Cooper, this tradition flourished. In 1906, Cooper was forced out as principal of M Street High School after supporting an educational curriculum that favors Du Bois' idea of liberal arts education over Booker T. Washington industrial education during the 1904 and 1905 academic year. Huggins must have benefited from this tradition when he landed a spot in the Columbia freshman class of 1910. Okay. So then it goes on to say, that Huggins earned his BA from Columbia in 1914. After graduation, he became chairman of the Department of History, Alabama A&M College, Huntsville, Alabama. While teaching history in Alabama, he developed a reputation as a community activist. Huggins led local protests against the showing of D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation, organized the Alabama chapter of the National Urban League, and supported educational activities for Black youth. Though the assistant of Channing H. Tobias, assistant to the national director of the Colored YMCA, a wealthy white contributor, Huggins helped establish a Black YMCA just 4 miles from the A&M campus. The relationship with Tobias eventually led to a friendship with John G. Jackson, the nephew of Tobias. In a few short years, Huggins and Jackson would become close friends and fellow advocates for the Black History movement. All right, so around this time, he met John G. Jackson through his uncle, Tobias, and they became very close and acquainted with one another. So let's continue. So life in the Windy City. In 1917, Huggins moved to Chicago, Illinois. He began teaching at Wendell Phillips High School and stayed at this post until 1922. During his summer breaks, he returned to Columbia to work towards a master's degree. Huggins completed this degree in 1919. He also attended classes at Northwestern Model School of Journalism while teaching in Chicago. During his Chicago years, he contributed articles to New York Age, the Norfolk Journal and Guide, the Baltimore Afro-American, and the Pittsburgh Courier. Although Huggins' name is not mentioned in the John E. Bruce paper, he must have made contact with Bruce, a nationally respected Black journalist who voiced similar race segments in his columns and independent publications. It is not unrealistic to conclude that this prospective contact put Huggins in touch with Arthur Schomburg. Schomburg and Bruce were close associates who were always on the lookout for a talented young Black thinker. For talented young Black thinkers who could join their campaign for popularization of African American history, and after 1918, the Garvey movement. All right. So, and as the spirit of the new Negro movement swept across African America, the Black community segments for self-defense and retaliatory violence were particularly alive in Chicago. These forces exploded in Chicago's race riot in 1919. Huggins sought to contribute to this passion for racial renewal and self-definition by publishing and editing the Searchlight and the Searchlight and Upreach magazine. Both publications were started in Chicago and concentrated on providing information for teachers and social workers who were attending to teach African and African American history in schools and independent study groups. Huggins relocated to New York City in 1922 and was assisted in his efforts to keep the Upreach alive by Arthur Schomburg, Charles S. Johnson, and John H. Purnell. All right. So it goes down here to talk about the Harlem struggle, confronting the school board, and the Italian-Ethiopia war. Now, check this out. In 1924, Huggins was selected for a teaching position in the New York City public school system. Black educators in the city system were quite rare. According to the New York Times, since Huggins was the only sixth African American to be hired by the Board of Education, almost immediately he sought to have African and African American history included in the curriculum of the public school system and struggled with the Board of Education to approve this initiative. Schomburg and Joel A. Rogers supported his effort, but the board rejected their proposal. Then they held community history classes at the Harlem YMCA located on 135th Street and occasionally in their private homes. In 1925, Huggins studied geography, history, and French in Europe. He received certificates from the Gilded International and Oxford University for his efforts. His addition, Huggins traveled throughout Europe and recorded his observation on European race relations. In 1932, Huggins became the first Black student to earn a PhD from Fordham University. He had attended Fordham from 1925 to 1932, and his dissertation was entitled "The Contribution of the Catholic Church to the Progress of the Negro in the United States." For the next 8 years, Huggins dedicated himself to the to the defense of Ethiopia, the Blyden Society, and his efforts to promote the serious study of African history. So on the evening of March 7, 1935, the Provisional Committee of the Defense of Ethiopia held its first public meeting at Harlem's Abyssinian Baptist Church. This organization was a united front of Garveyites, communists, journalists, street corner orator, liberal Black organization, socialist clergymen, and Africana scholars who were seeking to mobilize community outrage into a disciplined force to support Ethiopia and challenge American neutrality to the Italo-Ethiopian War. Huggins was one of the 6 speakers challenging. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, he was one of the 6 speakers that thrilled a crowd of approximately 3,000 who filled Harlem's largest Black church in spite of foul and inclement weather. 4 months later, the PCDE, in cooperation with the American League Against War and Fascism, sent Huggins to Geneva, Switzerland, with a petitions from the concerned Black and white masses in the United States. His task was to urge the League of Nations to adopt strong measures to restrain Italian aggression to assure Ethiopia of its support, and to send a neutral commission to East Africa to report on the boundary disputes between Italian and the Ethiopian governments. Prior to leaving, Huggins, Schomburg, and some of his closer Black colleagues formed the FEA, and Huggins was designated the executive secretary. Apparently, this was an effort to further legitimize Huggins' leadership credential and deepen the organizational base. Represent African American and particularly Harlem's Black community. All right. So then there's a lot of information here. All right, so what I'm gonna do is all right, so I'm going to stop at the part where it talks about Blyden Society, Huggins as a mentor. So I'm going to yeah, I'm just gonna read a little bit of that, but let me go ahead and go back up to the top. All right. So, anyways, it says Huggins was a perfect choice for this international assignment. He had recently completed his doctorate at Fordham University. He had often lectured on Ethiopian history at the Harlem YMCA, and his bookstore was a storehouse of Africana information. He was known for promoting African studies in public school system, and he had publicly challenged the school board's failure to institute courses on African civilization. As a Garveyite, his ties to Ethiopia were solidified during the glory days of the UNIA influence upon the Harlem community. Huggins had coordinated a Harlem visit of Ethiopian diplomats while the delegation was in the United States. on official business, and in 1932 he had developed a friendship with Rasdesta Damtu, the governor of Sidamo province and son-in-law to Emperor Haile Selassie. In addition, from the PCDE's inception in February 1935, Huggins had been praised for his dedication, hard work, and his ability to coordinate Black and interracial organization concerned about retaliatory aggression towards Ethiopia. En route to Switzerland, Huggins conferred with Ethiopian officials and European supporters in London, Paris. In Paris, Huggins met with Minister Taco Arate, or however you say his name. And in London, he met with William H. Moody, a Jamaican national and director of the League of Colored Peoples of the World. So, Warne Martin, the Ethiopian minister to Great Britain, and Quaker leaders who were considered influential with the British Parliament. Huggins was able to meet with the Ethiopian minister to Britain through exploiting his contacts with C.L.R. James, the Trinidadian activist and founder of the London-based International African Friends of Abyssinia, Amy Jack Garvey, and Lepido Solanke, leader of West African Students Union, after meeting with Minister Martin on August 7, 1935. Huggins received the Ethiopian government authorization to solicit medical supplies, nurses, doctors, veterans, and other trained civilian personnel. Martin also encouraged Huggins to campaign for a public loan arranged through a reputable banking house. All African Americans who decided upon relocation would be expected to join the government's effort to build the Ethiopia of the future. Martin concluded a public interview by stating, Dr. Huggins has my full approval to proceed in the organization such activities in connection with committees which may be arranged. Okay. Then it goes on to say, on August 15, 1935, after conferring with Ethiopian representative in London and Paris, Huggins spoke before a committee of the Secretariat of the League of Nations. His presentation called for the League to intercede and restrain Italian aggression and prevent any invasion of Ethiopia. Huggins began his plea to this international body by declaring Africans and persons of African descent throughout the world have always looked with pride at the empire of Ethiopia, which alone of all ancient empires of Black men in Africa still maintains its independence. The concentration of Italian men and monuments on the Ethiopian frontier, according to Huggins, is viewed with righteous indignation by Blacks of the Western world that are bound by racial kinship to ancient and illustrious Ethiopian people. He further argued that an invasion and defeat of Ethiopia would threaten world peace, encourage the spread of fascism, make a mockery of Christian principle, and increase the guilt of modern Christian nation who had participated in the historical rape of Africa and the enslavement of millions of her children. Huggins called for the League to act decisively and resolve the Italo-Ethiopian dispute peacefully. His presentation was concise. It linked the destiny of Ethiopia with the African diaspora and clearly identified Italy's aggression as a critical challenge to the League's goal of maintaining world peace and justice. All right. All right, so it goes on down to say, When Huggins returned to Harlem in late August of 1935, he launched a campaign to organize African American communities throughout the country. The national office of the all-black FEA was established on Harlem's 7th Avenue, and by December, the organization reported 106 local chapters in the 19 cities. In addition, the FEA had affiliated itself with a collection of national and international organizations that included the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, the Ethiopia Research Council, the American Prophylaxia Committee, the Universal Ethiopian Students Association, the International African Friends of Ethiopia, La Rue de Monde Nord, the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom in Geneva, and Hunes Ethiopians, which was in Addis Ababa, which that's located in Ethiopia. During the first months of Italy's invasion of Ethiopia, Harlem's activist community acknowledged the FEA as the most important of the Black Ethiopian aid societies. In addition, through his presentation to the League of Nations, his efforts to organize African American support of Ethiopian resistance, and by winning the endorsement of Ethiopian ministers, Huggins had ushered Black America into unprecedented era of international influence and diplomacy. November of 1935, George Schroyer, the conservative Black journalist, praised Huggins and the FEA. Dr. Huggins is a culture accomplished, brilliant, and honest Negro. According to Schroyer, who for a very long time has seen clearly the fundamental issues at the bottom of worldwide imperialism from the viewpoint of the Negro, as Huggins was praised in Black newspapers, celebrated on the lecture circuit, and daily noticed by Harlem's working class, he gradually opposed communist involvement in the Ethiopian aid campaign. He had previously established a working relationship with the communists during his association with the PCDE. As his commitment to the United Front politics declined, old tensions that characterized the clash between Garveyites and the New York Marxist community led to communist efforts to discredit Huggins. He had solid nationalist credentials stretching back to early years of the Garvey movement, and he enjoyed the support of moderate Black organizations such as the NAACP and the National Urban League. However, Huggins was vulnerable on the use and allocation of the funds collected by the FEA. All right. It says the extent of fundraising by the FEA, according to the Pan-African scholar Joseph E. Harris, is undocumented. Minutes and reports for the organization are unavailable, and public records on money collected or supplies sent to Ethiopia are few. Huggins may have funded FEA funds through the Ethiopian Council General, the American Red Cross, or several of the other organizations affiliated with the FEA, including the International Friends of Abyssinia, the Save the Children Fund, the American Prophylaxia Committee, and the Ethiopian Research Council. By the spring of 1936, the United Aid to Ethiopia, a collection of Harlem's Ethiopian Support Organization, and the work of Robert F. S. Harris, Secretary of the Biracial Committee for Ethiopia, overshadowed the activities and notoriety of the FEA. Willis Huggins was a flamboyant and controversial figure in the efforts to rally and organize African American support for Ethiopia defense. However, his shortcomings on the fundraising issue do not undermine the critical role that he and the FEA played in the history of African Americans' attempt to focus on international and national attention upon the plight of the Abyssinian struggle to control Italian aggression. Okay, so now it goes down to talk about the Blinding Society, Huggins as a mentor to John G. Jackson and John Henry Clark. So Willis Huggins was a mentor to Dr. John Clark and John G. Jackson, both. Okay, so let's look into that. It says one of the most overlooked and underappreciated aspects of Huggins' life was his role as leader and mentor to the Blind Society and the Harlem History Club. With few surviving primary sources, scholars are largely dependent upon in oral interviews and piecing together small historical legs to understand the significance of these Harlem institutions. When Huggins began to teach African and African American history courses at the Harlem YMCA, this gathering was first called the Harlem History Club. Huggins had an established community reputation as an Africana scholar. He was a vocal advocate for incorporating African and African American history in the New York City public school curriculum. His bookstore had been a gathering venue for Black history enthusiasts and self-trained Black historians. Harlem's legions of street orators also frequent the Blyden bookstore to read, purchase, or simply discuss an assortment of classic and new publication. And Huggins had an impressive following of young Black thinkers who knew him as a teacher and administrator in the night school program at Harlem's Union High School. All of these factors made the Harlem History Club an intermediate success and the perfect intellectual resources for Black working class youth and older community activists who could not afford a formal college education, or attend daytime high school programs because they conflicted with their jobs obligation. Okay, so and it says Harlem also had a tradition of supporting independent literary clubs, books lover gathering, and public forums that encouraged debate and discussion of political, economics, and social issues that captured the community's attention. Huggins continued this legacy by contacting and encouraging many colleagues and associates to lecture and participate in the weekly activities of the Harlem History Club. In addition, his roots in Garvey's UNIA, the experience of publishing and editing Black periodicals in Chicago and New York City, and the rich international contacts cultivate through his association with Ethiopian defense efforts during the Italo-Ethiopian War provided an impressive list of potential Black history supporters to stimulate the minds of his community students. Two long-term friends and self-trained Black historians who worked closely with the Harlem History Club and supported Huggins' effort to popularize African American and African history were Arthur Schomburg and Joel Augustus Rogers. Prior to moving to Harlem, Huggins had been friends and associated with both of these men since his publication of independent Black journals in Chicago. All three men were important collaborators in the international and domestic efforts to galvanize a united front for the material and political support of Ethiopia during the 1930s. They also lectured on Pan-African and African topics at the 135th Street Library, Book Lovers Club, the Harlem YMCA, and at local UNIA forums during the glory days of the Garvey movement in the 1920s. Both Rogers and Schomburg admired the persistence that Huggins demonstrated in his failed attempt to persuade the New York City Public School Board to add Black history courses to the city high school's curriculum. Huggins represented a solid contract for Rogers and Schomburg within the university-trained Black academic community that respected the contribution and intellectual achievements of self-trained Black scholars. In addition, these two self-trained scholars believed that Huggins lacked the pretentiousness, pretentiousness, and eroded behavior that lay intellectual often associated with their university trained colleagues. Then it goes on to say, as the Harlem History Club grew, Huggins changed the organization name to Blyden Society. This name honored the great Pan-African scholar activist Edward Whitman Blyden. Although Blyden had been dead for more than a generation, his well-articulated views on religion, education, and Pan-Africanism was still fresh in the minds of Black scholars throughout America, the Caribbean, and Africa. Blyden's two most important publications, Christianity, Islam, and the Negro Race, and the African Life and Custom, were among the assigned readings. This decision also aligned his research collective with the Blyden Bookstore, a community enterprise owned and operated by Huggins. He identified outstanding students and began to hold smaller sessions on African history, historical research techniques, and the craft of writing history at his home. The only known address of Blyden Society was 1897 Avenue. This was also Huggins' home address. In addition, meetings of this research group met at the Blyden's bookstore located at 2296 7th Avenue. All right. So let's skip down just a little bit. Then it goes on to say, sprinkle through this outdoor theater of street orators were the current and former offices of the Negro World, the Messenger, the Challenger, and the Crusader newspapers. These weekly publications and their editors were keenly aware of the Blyden Bookstore and the work of Willis Huggins as a master teacher and an independent journalist and publisher, and a mentor to aspiring self-trained historians. Students affiliated with the Blyden Society were motivated and inspired by a community environment that encouraged creative thinking, political activism, oratorical skills, and the importance of mastering history as a serious tool for the interpretation and analysis of social problems. And then it goes on to say that John Henry Clark and John G. Jackson are excellent examples of the types of students who were recruited by Huggins and studied under his direction during life of the Blyden Society. Both of these men were young and aspiring Southern migrants who relocated to Harlem in the 1920s and 1930s. Jackson was born in Aiken, South Carolina on April the 1st, 1907, and dropped out of Schonfield School in Atkins after finishing the 7th grade. He completed 1 year of high school in Augusta, Georgia, and then joined the wave of Southern migrants moving to New York City at the age of 15. He arrived in Harlem during the same year that Huggins established the Blyden Bookstore, similar to many other young Black men without the support of family and lacking a formal education. Jackson worked his way through the New York Sylvester High School, even the pressure of working part-time and low-paying jobs. Jackson excelled academically at Sylvester High School by winning a scholarship certificate for proficiency in English composition during his senior year in 1925. At the Fisher High School, Jackson periodically registered for creative writing courses at City College and published articles in the Truth Seeker magazine and Negro World. All right, and so I'm just going to start right there. So that's a lot of information regarding to the life of Huggins. Now, let's go back to the introduction because I had to skip the intro. So the introduction said, on Tuesday, July 15, 1941, New York City detectives supervised the recovery of a male body from the Hudson River near 72nd Street. After contacting the Missing Persons Bureau, it was determined that this unfortunate person was Dr. Willis Nathaniel Huggins. His sister, Mrs. Roberta Goldsby, and his wife, Rosetta, identified the body at the city morgue on Wednesday morning. Huggins had been missing since December 23rd and last seen by friends and relatives at his home located at 1897th Avenue. He was reported to have $500 in his wallet at the time. This was not unusual since Huggins owned the Blyden bookstore and had been associated with several independent black publications. The only clues to his whereabouts was an overcoat that had been found on the George Washington Bridge and a letter that Huggins sent to his wife stating that something is going to happen. At the time of his disappearance, Huggins was teaching history and economics at Bushwick High School in Brooklyn and serving as assistant principal at Harlem's Union High School in the evening. All right. The Harlem community was both shocked and saddened to hear confirmation of Huggins' death. In the past 6.5 months, his disappearance had been a hotly debated mystery. The press, his family, and his lawyer all publicly declared that Huggins had committed suicide. His students at the Blyden Society and the street community believed that Huggins had met with foul play from a gangster element due to unpaid business loan. Damn. And the completing version of his death had not been reconciled, nor does firm documentation exist to disprove either version. Huggins had been associated with the Garvey movement since 1919 and recognized as a dedicated and talented race man by Harlem's leadership for more than 2 decades. In addition, he was the former president of the New York branch of the Association for the Study for New York Life and History, the executive secretary for Friends of Ethiopia in America, a tireless advocate for including African and African American history in public school curriculum, and an articulate voice for the Black History movement. In addition, he had a network of national and international friends and contacts, right, which include J.A. Rogers, Carl G. Woodson, W.E.B. Du Bois, Arthur A. Schomburg, Charles S. Johnson, Claude McClay, Jesse E. Moreland, Amy Jacks Garvey, Dantes Balagres, if I'm saying his name right. He has a Haitian name. President Steno Vincent of Haiti, Radesta Damtu of Ethiopia, and scores of former students in West Africa, Ethiopia, and London. On the community level, his leadership of the Blyden Society facilitated the education of such noted self-trained historians as John Henry Clark and John G. Jassy. These accomplishments and his mentorship of a generation of young self-trained Black historians have sadly been neglected and forgotten by contemporary scholars of the African American experience. This paper will rescue and briefly discuss the life and contribution of this Black activist intellectual from his family roots in Alabama to his mysterious death in the early 1940s. All right, so with that being said, if you guys want to check out more, you can just look it up. Just go on thefreelibrary.com and just type in the name Willis Nathaniel Huggins, historian, activist, and community mentor. Okay, boom. So now, let's see, what else can I find? That's it. That's that information. Okay, that's it. Woo-dee-woo-dee-woo. Woo-dee-woo-dee-woo. All right then. So let me see. Let's see. There's some people's in the chat room here. Okay. All right. Peace to Brother Vinyasa. Peace to Brother Sheffrin. Thank you, Brother Sheffrin. Okay. Well, I can arrange that. I have to come up with a day and a time, because my schedule doesn't change now. So we can come up with a day and time. Just reach out to me. You can reach out to me on YouTube, or you can reach out to me on Facebook. I don't know if you have a Facebook page. If you do, you can reach out to me on Facebook. I have a Facebook page. So just reach out to me and contact me, and then just let me know what you want to do, whatnot. I don't have any problem. Just reach out to me. So, And then I could just give you the time and the day that I'll be available to go ahead and do certain topics and etc. So I had to stop right there. So unfortunately, that's all the information I have available about Willis Nathaniel Huggins. As you can see, he was a very prominent figure in the African American community. He was very big on history, just like Carl G. Woodson was. He was very big on history. And so it was a lot of people, a lot of blacks that we don't even know about that really fought to get African American studies and African history into the community. Willis Nathaniel Huggins, Carl G. Woodson, Edward Wilmot Blyden. Okay, Edward Wilmot Blyden was another one. It's a long list of people. Let me see. Then you also had Rayford Logan. Rayford Logan was another one. Rayford Logan was just like Edward Wilmot Blyden. He was a Pan-Africanist, and he fought to bring African history and African American studies into the school system. So these guys have really paved the way for people like not Carl G. Woodson, John G. Jackson, and Dr. John Henry Clark. It was these guys, and also, not to mention, Hubert Harrison. Hubert Harrison, it was another one. As a matter of fact, he was the one that gave the platform to Marcus Garvey. Because Marcus Garvey's whole purpose was to actually meet Booker T. Washington, because that was his big inspiration. But Booker T died by the time he came here to America, so he ended up meeting up with Hubert Harrison. Okay, and Hubert Harrison inspired he inspired John G. Jackson as well. You know what I'm saying? So it was a list of people that did a lot of things, and they just went unheard of. But I'm stopping this part because I want to address something, okay? I want to address some comments that were made on my previous video on YouTube, okay? So, so after a while, I get tired of typing. All right, so this is one of the reasons why I just wanted to go ahead and I want to address this comment. So a person by the name Michael Coffey, he put CRT, which is critical race theory, promotes the notion that the fact that a group is measurably superior is proof that everybody in that group is guilty, and that a group being inferior is proof that everybody in that group is a victim. Further, this principle projects through time, asserting that what happened to the long dead projects onto the guilt or victimhood of the living, even if the living never experienced that at all. That is a mental illness. All right, so let me address that. So let's do a recap on what my previous video was about. So my previous video was dealing with the racial injustice, about police brutality, the situation that happened to Amir Locke and what's his name? Sharon Lockett, and then Dante Wright. So, and then also was covering up the issue about Black mental health and whatnot. All right, so let me clarify this. We're not talking individualism, okay? We're not talking individualism. See, people are stuck on the individualism and not looking at it as a group thing, or not looking at it as a systematic issue. And why do I promote the concept of critical race theory? Why do I think that needs to be talked about? Well, it's self-explanatory. It's self-explanatory. The whole purpose of the critical race theorists, right, was to challenge the system, which is the system that we currently live in, on the issue regarding to race, because of the historical events that has taken place in this country and how it has impacted us today. How it has impacted us today. It still has an effect. Now, this is where I had stopped interacting with this person. when this person, again, I'm on my phone, so what I told this person, I said, this person put, well, more important, as critical race theorists, we adopt a stance that presumes that racism has contributed to all contemporary manifestation of group advantage and disadvantage along racial lines, including differences in income, imprisonment, health, housing, education, political representation, and military service. Our history calls for this presumption. Words that wound critical race theory, assaultive speech, and the First Amendment by Masuda Lawrence the third, Delago, and Kimberly William Crenshaw. Those are their words from their intellectual paper. It's the entire foundation of the premises. It certainly does presume guilt and victimhood. You address mental illness by treating the mentally ill. Only you think this is about what people discuss. You have the right to discuss anything you choose. Okay, so there's this thing called transgenerational trauma. And if you guys don't know that transgenerational trauma is real, it's basically a pathology that's being passed from one generation to another. Okay. So what I'm saying is, as and because to me, this sounds like this person is downplaying our experience as African Americans here in America. I don't know the race of this individual, but I do know just by the comment, this person doesn't sound like he is African American. Then he could be, I don't know. But my thing is, you cannot downplay what we have experienced here in this country. It don't matter what you try to do. You cannot downplay that, because those experiences has an effect on us as far as our mental behavior, as far as how we interact with each other, as far as our environment concerned. It has an effect. Okay. So it brought about transgenerational trauma. We have not fully recovered from all these things. Okay. We have dealt with so much social stigma that we can't fully recover from a lot of things that happen to us. All right. And so then let me go ahead and let me read another one of his comments. So he asked me a question. The operator question is, do you support using government force to implement racial discrimination? I don't know what kind of question that is. But I will say this, the government has been using racial discrimination for a long time. So this system has been using racial discrimination. So I said, the government has implemented racial discrimination for years. Those academics are based on field studies, sir, not some make-believe shit. Okay, so what you deal with is those academic writers, they deal with the field research. Okay, they deal with field study. They're not just coming out the sky and making up some make-believe shit just to make it sound good or fit their narrative. No, this is the actual experience. Okay, and it takes a field study and field research to actually write something that's dealing with critical race theory. Okay, you don't just come out the clear blue sky and just write some stuff. But anyways, let's continue on. So he assumes that I am in support of government use of force to implement racial discrimination. I say, okay, well, if that's what you believe, then okay. So this guy responded by saying there is only one or two answers. You answer doing that shit. Give me one moment, you guys. Okay, so I'm back. So this guy, now he's saying that there is only one or two answer. You answer in affirmative, that's a yes. Then you confirm that some militant racial chauvinists have actually answered honestly. Most answer like you. You know what? That's why this right here. See, this is pure ignorance. So this motherfucker comes on my page, not even actually analyzing the video, not listening to what I'm saying in the video, but assume that I am being a militant racial chauvinist. This is the ignorance. See, this is why I don't like to have conversation with folks on YouTube like that, because they are very ignorant and they presume and they're stupid. So nowhere did I promote military or militant racial chauvinism. Nowhere did I promote that. I was only stating the facts. I was only stating the reality. Now, if you think that I am being a militant racial chauvinist because you don't have an understanding of my video and you want to downplay the experience of Black people, then that's your motherfucking ass. That's your motherfucking ass. You know what I'm saying? So what somebody's not going to do is you're not going to play on my intelligence. See, that's one thing I'm not going to tolerate. And then this is why I told him there's covert racism and it's overt racism, which I'm going to have a conversation about that one of these days. Okay. Because obviously we don't get what transgenerational trauma is and covert and overt racism. And this is how stupid the motherfucker is. The motherfucker gonna put there is no such thing as accidental or unconscious racism. Motherfucker, I didn't say nothing about accidental or unconscious racism. I said overt and covert racism. Covert racism means that racism that is done subliminally. Okay, it's done indirectly. Overt racism means directly. So where the fuck did you get unconscious and accidental racism? Don't come on my page with the bullshit. Because at this point, I was getting pissed off and I just ended the conversation. Because I see what the motherfucker trying to do. You're not going to come to me talking that shit. You're not going to come to me and try to downplay my intelligence, thinking that you're going to sit up here and try to downplay what I've been through as a Black person that belongs to a group of people that's experienced oppression. You're not going to do that. So I asked, I said, the critical race theorists have a point. Again, historical events has affected our current situation and create transgenerational trauma. That's why I advocate for this. Where are you trying to get at? And this is the answer that got me just saying it's time to end the conversation. I'm saying that race has no place in government at all. But it does, jackass. We are entitled to equal protection before the law and impartial justice. No, we are all entitled to the presumption of innocence. Race convicts you of nothing. Race entitles you to nothing. To use government force to implement racial discrimination is fascism. This is what the motherfucker put on here. So you're telling me that using government force to implement racial discrimination is fascism? You a jackass. You a jackass. And you're going to say race convicts you of nothing. This is how I know the motherfucker got to be a white person. Because I don't think any Black person going to come talking like that. And if he talks like this, he's a house nigga. He said, we are all entitled to equal protection before the law and impartial justice. Don't come with the bullshit. Don't come to me with this bullshit. And we all are entitled to presumption of innocence. You know, at this point, I had to stop having this conversation because I don't know what that person was trying to make out of me, or the video, but this person is just showing their pure ignorance. What you're not going to do is you're not going to come and talk that bunch of bullshit. It ain't my fault that you cannot accept the reality and you don't know about historical events that happened in America, especially when it came down to African Americans. So I hate people who think they can downplay somebody's experience and the transgenerational trauma that has happened to a group of people. I can't stand that shit. Again, this is why we have to talk about Black mental health, because it all ties into the critical race theory. Now, if you got a problem with that, then that's on you, okay? That's on you. You came on my page and you comment on my page. I'm going to stand on my position, whether you think I am militant, chauvinist, or whatever the case may be. If you think that, if you feel that way, that's on you, okay? Because I really ain't got to prove a damn thing to you. I don't know you and you don't know me, all right? So you can say what the fuck you want to say about me. I don't give a shit. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to keep on going back and forth and typing to your ignorance. So I'm going to keep doing my videos and I'm going to say what I have to say. And then I am going to leave it at that. I'm not going to change my position and you're not going to make me do so. So keep it moving. All right. That's all you can do is just keep it moving. It was nice talking to you, but keep it moving. All right. So that goes for Michael Coffey. Okay. Keep it moving. Keep it moving. Anyways, now that I got that off my chest, I hope that you guys have a good day, and I will come back later on, hopefully, and I will do a video relating to these topics about covert racism and what covert racism and overt racism, and also transgenerational trauma. I'm going to do a topic on those. There's a lot of things I want to cover. It's a lot of shit that I am going to cover, okay? But anyways, I'm just going to leave it here for now. Once again, shout out to the chat. Peace to the chat. Thank everybody for coming through, watching. Thank everybody that's been supporting my channel. This your girl Tiffany, and I'm logging off with that. With that being said, peace and power, elevation be to all you. This your girl Tip. Deuces. Y'all take it easy and be safe, all right?